Hey everyone, it is James Gardner again. This is another Conversations in Courage. So welcome for joining us today. And my guest today is coming from down under. Down under. I can't do an Aussie accent, but down under from the land of Oz. She's joining me today to crack open a convo on courage, on perfectionism, and how that paralyzes one, and just kind of the state of the human condition from her lens down where she is, and from my lens up where I am in Vancouver. So please welcome today Claire Riley to the show. Claire, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. Can't wait to have a chat.
You got it. Claire is a business coach and a mentor, and she has an amazing podcast, which I was very blessed to be on. It's called the Recovering Perfectionist podcast, which we'll get into a little bit later. So Claire, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I just kind of spilled the beans that you live in Australia, but you can elaborate.
I do. I live in the beautiful Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, where I've been for about almost a year now, which is a big change for me and for my kids, but it's been amazing. So yeah, I've been running my own business I've just had my 5-year anniversary with this business, which is super exciting that it's got over the 5-year and I'm still alive and kicking. I kind of call myself a recovering perfectionist and a professional Virgo and a business geek. So I'm kind of.
Did you say professional Virgo?
I'm a professional Virgo.
Do you
want to know what that means?
Yeah, can you explain that? Because I guess that makes me a professional Aries. I don't know. But.
Right. Well, I do call myself a professional Virgo because I am kind of your typical textbook Virgo, where I like things that are beautiful and organized and ordered and easy and efficient. And I've kind of made a living out of doing those sort of things for myself as well as for my clients. So kind of sums it up nicely.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Cool. I mean, as you know, I am a business coach, and I've never heard someone label themselves like that. It's awesome. I like that. Individuality at its finest.
That's what it is.
All right. So Claire, well, let's talk about, before we get into courage and the landscape of courage, let's talk a little bit about what you do with your clients. Being in business for 5 years is a milestone in this day and age too. Being a solo business owner. So congratulations. So let's talk about how you impact your clients.
Sure. So I guess the biggest thing that I do is systems and strategy for marketing and that sort of thing with business. I mainly work with women who have their own business, and I mainly work with women who are amazing at what they do, whether it's they're a therapist, a coach, a trainer, a healer, a creative of some sort, but they don't have the interest or the skills on the business side of things. So I kind of help them to pull all of that stuff in together and find a really good balance for them, so they have enough of that business acumen and skills and systems that doesn't feel like it's overwhelming and heavy and gross, and find ways to automate and systemize and simplify and stop doing the stuff that doesn't really need to be done, that's sort of not getting them anywhere. So I guess that's kind of the strategic side of things. And then there is obviously the mindset and coaching and mentoring sort of side of it, because, you know, as you and I both know, and anyone who's been in business for any period of time, that having your own business is the biggest personal development journey you're ever going to go through, probably alongside parenthood. But there's so many ups and downs, and, you know, from 1 minute to the next, one day to the next, one launch to the next, all the demons rear their ugly head from time to time in some sort of way, shape or form. So I hope that I can, you know, support people with that. And that's, I guess, where the recovering perfectionist kind of comes in as well, because that's certainly another way that I really identify. And I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and just about, you know, killed myself over trying to do things perfectly, and also see that there's absolutely no point in doing that anymore. So
Totally.
Yeah.
So I want to get into the perfectionist in a second. Let's just set the table here for Claire Riley in terms of when I say the word courage, what resonates about that? What resonates from that word to you? What comes to mind?
It's been on my mind so much since we obviously chatted about having this conversation. And one thing I guess that I keep coming back to is the decision making. That courage often starts with the decision making, right? So when you're in the action taking part of whatever it is that you're doing, you're kind of already in there. You're kind of already, there's a bit of momentum. But often, especially as a perfectionist and a recovering perfectionist, where we get held up is just in the decision to make a change or to start something or to stop something. And that can be the scariest thing of all, because once you've made a decision, you kind of have to take action. Like there's no, and if we don't make a decision, it means we don't have to take action, which means we can't fail at it. Right. So to me, I
Safe.
think that's
Yeah.
what kind of keeps coming up is the decision making bit of courage.
Yeah, and that's I like that. And it's interesting because I don't think, I mean, I've done quite a number of these shows, and I'm trying to remember if someone's talked about that in terms of decisions, because really there are those micro moments of courage in any decision, really,
Sure.
right? It is the courage to activate a decision and then, you know, deal with the repercussions, positive or negative,
Either way.
either way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfectionism. So, so when if you were to ask me, James, what do you think when you hear that word? For me, I think of, I put it hand in hand with paralyzed. Paralyzed. Perfection paralyzes. We've heard that phrase a lot. What do you see? What are some of the common traits that people deal with when it comes to perfectionism that truly inhibits their growth?
I think the first thing, and probably the most obvious one that I think most people would resonate with, is the external validation and the need for external validation. And no one ever says, "Oh, I'm a perfectionist because I require so much external validation." It's just generally a side effect of it, right? But it's a self-awareness thing to go like, why is it so important that I do this to this higher standard? Why is it so important that I don't do this unless I can do it 110%, that sort of thing? And often it's because there's a need of some sort to have someone say, "Oh, well done, Claire, that's great, you know, that's fantastic, and we're proud of you," and that sort of thing, which can come from a whole heap of different, you know, initial stimuli when you're a child and all that sort of thing, obviously. But I guess that's one of the big things, is that sort of external validation. And I think the other thing, the really big thing, is fear, right? So we don't start things, or we don't stop things, or we don't take the step, or we don't have those difficult conversations, or we don't leave that relationship, or we don't move house or change whatever it is, because we might stuff it up. It might go wrong. Someone will judge us. We'll look stupid. We might fail. We might succeed. And even success can be really scary, because then everyone will know that I'm successful, and everyone will know that I've got a good income, or it just brings out all of the different sort of demons. So I think probably those are the two big things that kind of come up, you know, on the podcast, no matter who I talk to, whether it's about body, relationships, business, you know, whatever sort of things it is, that always comes down to fear and to external validation. They're probably the two biggest things that we just cover over and over again, using different language and through a different lens, depending on who I'm talking to.
Right. And the aspect of fear, it's interesting, because what landed for me when you said it this time was almost perfectionism becomes a place to live safely, as opposed, because you get stuck in this circular loop of perfectioning whatever it is, and it keeps you from exposing, or keeps you from doing. Is that true? So it becomes a safety mechanism?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's definitely the safest place to be, because you never have to put anything out into the world. You never have to be seen. You never have to make a change. You never have to do the scary thing, which probably brings us back to the courage conversation. And how I see it showing up a lot for people in business, especially, is that they start projects over and over again, and they are these big, amazing, game-changing projects, and they get to 95%, and there's a shiny object over here which they go and play with instead, because if they don't finish this thing, then they can't fail at it. So it just sits there, 95% done. It's actually probably 200% done, but they haven't put the ribbon on it and, you know, polished and buffed and polished it quite enough. So then they've gone over here and they start again from scratch. and they go through that whole process, and then that one gets to 95%, and then there's another shiny object over here, and I'll just go and play with that for a little while. And it's this perpetual, like, in creation mode where nothing really gets finished, you know. And one of the things that I try and work with people, especially when we're doing like coaching package, for example, and there's an end goal, like they want to launch a new course or launch a website or I don't know, whatever it is, then I try and help people to make some really clear goalposts and milestones now, and commit to, when these things are done, these bare minimums are done, it's going out there, right? It's going out there. We're not doing that. Oh, actually, I've just thought about, I might just add this. Oh, I think I'm just going to redo the, like, no, we're not doing that. We're, you know, even if we have to call it a beta round and make it $99, let's just get it out there and try it, throw some spaghetti at the wall and get over the speed hump of knowing that even if it does fail, no one died, it's all good, we can fix it, or we can change it, or, you know, it was a good experiment and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you know, I see that a lot too with the business owners that I deal with. They get caught up in trying to coddle the baby too much, and sometimes the baby needs to walk. And the only way that they're going to know that their program or their course works or needs to be course corrected is to put it out there and trust. You know, you got to do the work. We know that, and we also have to trust the work. And trusting it doesn't mean that you're going to trust it to be all that in a bag of chips. It's just trusting it to give you something back in return, i.e., I need to fix this, I need to change this, up level this, whatever it is. Yeah. But people kind of clutch it to the chest.
And you've probably seen the same thing, that one of the other, I guess, symptoms is overdoing it. And like, I've got this, there's, you know, whatever, however many things in here, however much stuff. Oh, I think it would be really helpful if I also give them this and give them this and give them this and give them this. And you overgive, which often then also ends up being undervalued. But it's more than that, but because when people go and do the thing that you've sold to them, it's overwhelming and it's too much, and it's not specifically fixing one problem. It's kind of blanketing lots and lots of problems. And if they spent 2 years with you, maybe that would be fantastic. But in this piece of work, it doesn't have to be everything out of your brain, fixing every problem of everyone in the world.
Yeah, I think you and I may have talked about this on your show, because it is a common thing that I see, which is everyone wants to give and overvalue and deliver. And we're in the business of delivering value. We love that. And at the end of the day, everybody has a course or whatever they're working on, and then they have life, and they have motherhood, and they have soccer practice, and they have all this crap, or football, excuse me. I don't know but you know what I mean. Whatever it is, though, they have the real life, and all that stuff ends up overwhelming them and causes paralyzation again, because they just feel stuck behind the 8 ball and they can't move forward.
Yeah, it's such a good point as well. I think that we overstuff things, and, you know, people talk about work-life balance or work-life blending or all of that sort of thing. And I think it's a real risk when you go into business, or even with work, like whatever it is. There's often a tendency to throw yourself completely into one thing, and then you get a further down the track and you're like, shit, I've totally neglected whatever, relationship, kids, family, business, whatever it is. And there's no point in beating yourself up about that, because then we do the self-flagellation. Oh, I haven't spent enough time with my kids, I'm a bad parent, or, you know, my relationship's failing, or my business is crap because I've spent too much time with my partner, or like whatever it is. There's always something that is kind of in a different what do you call it, like a different bucket or whatever. So if you think of all the buckets, and I think really importantly with that mindset is that it doesn't have to be a balance or a blend, and what it looks like ideally from one day and 1 week and 1 month to the next will change all the time. And giving yourself permission to put your kids in front of the television so that you can get this thing out, because that means that you're going to buy your future self a bit of extra time with the kids. Like there's no point in beating yourself up about it. We all have massive goals in so many important areas of our life, right? And we can't give 100% to any of them at the same time. You've kind of got to balance that and shift it, and you've got to forgive yourself for not being 100% on for everyone else, you know, as well as yourself, hopefully, as well.
Yeah, beautifully said. And usually, you know, speak for myself. I arrive at those type of conclusions after I've been there and done that myself, and eaten one too many shit sandwiches. So my question to you then, Claire, is your journey of being a recovery perfectionist. What was Claire like before 5 years ago, or what started you on this path?
Yeah. Well, lots of things. I guess it was a bit of a melting pot of becoming a parent, leaving my corporate role, starting a business and all of that sort of thing. And I was telling someone the other day, when I was in corporate, I used to brag that I never took a day off unless someone would send me home. So I would drag my ass out of bed, I would get the kids ready, take them to daycare, get into work. And it wouldn't be until I was on my deathbed that someone said, "You need to go home," that I would actually give myself the day off. But by that stage, I'd usually end up in hospital for a week because I was so sick and I'd
Mm,
worked myself to the bone. And when I was young and didn't have kids or whatever, that was fine. Whatever. A couple of weeks off. Great. Awesome. I'm so sick. I have to take a couple of weeks off. Excellent. That's the only way I'm going to get my time off and not feel guilty about it. Right.
right.
When I became a mother, I wrote about this the other day. I'm writing a bit of a book at the moment. I was writing about this particular thing the other day. I had a very needy firstborn. I'm sure they're all very needy, but mine felt like a particularly big, needy burden that was just always on me. And at this particular time of year and the particular place that I was sitting to breastfeed at the particular time in the afternoon where he needed me for 3 hours in a row, the sun came through the window and it would shine on our TV cabinet. And all I could see day after day for what felt like probably 5 or 6 weeks, all that I could think was, "Oh my God, you still haven't even dusted. You can't even dust.
Uh,
Like, how useless are you? You know, you still can't even dust." And it was 6 weeks of this just going, "Why haven't I even dusted?" It was 24 hours since I had that last thought. I've had 24 hours. Why couldn't I just go and get a dusting cloth and all this sort of thing? And a few other sort of those sorts of things happened. And someone, I can't even remember if it was a midwife or a nurse or a friend or something on Facebook, I don't know, sort of gave me a bit of a reality check. Like, you're keeping a tiny human alive and there's been complications and you lost all this blood in childbirth and all this sort of thing. And you don't need to worry about the washing, the cooking, the cleaning, the everyone else, the returning phone calls and the frigging dust on the TV cabinet. And that was a bit of a light bulb for me of just going like, yeah, I'm being a really good mum. Like, why do I have to also be a really good domestic cleaner right now as well?
right.
And I know it sounds like such a random example, but there's always the one that I come back to because I was beating myself up so badly about a bit of dust,
Hmm.
right? It was just such a strange sort of thing. So I guess that was a big catalyst of just going, oh, I don't have to be perfect at everything. I can, and it's okay to ask for help and to accept help when it's offered and to be specific about the help that I need. And rather than someone coming over and saying, "What can I do?" and me going, "Oh, nothing, I'm fine," I'll be like, "Can you go and get a dusting cloth and do the TV cabinet for me?" You know what I mean? So little
Yeah.
things like that, I think that kind of gave me a bit of a reality check. And then finally, when I had started my business, I was working with a beautiful intuitive business coach, and I was having the business existential meltdown that we all have in the first few years, going, "What's my purpose? What am I here for?" And she asked me, "Well, why did you start your business?" And I was like, "Well, I've just, I've always been good at business, but people often say, like, how do you get it all done?" At the time I was married, but my husband was FIFO, so he was always away. I had two little kids. I had a big house, I had a very busy social life, but I was also really good at self-care and looking after myself. And people always said, "How do you do it?" And I would sort of laugh it off until a few people said, "No, literally, how do you do it? Like, how do you keep your house so clean
Mhm.
or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh, this is actually a thing. Like, I could actually be quite practical, Virgo, in helping people to do this kind of stuff." And she was like, "Yeah, but I don't reckon you're the poster girl for 'I got my shit together.'" And I was like, "What is she talking about?
Damn, I'll
I
fight
am
words.
exactly the poster girl for 'I've got my shit together.'" Um, and I kind of swept that under the carpet. But a couple of months later, when I was thinking about starting up my podcast, I was really sort of drilling into, like, what do I really want people to know? And I realized that my journey, in the previous few years to that, had really been about, like, why am I so visible? Why have I had really great success to start with? And it was because I'd stopped worrying about what everyone was thinking about me. I'd stopped worrying about looking perfect before getting on the camera. I spent 3 months in India in 2011, and I've got about 3 photos of myself there because I was too proud to take a selfie of myself because I thought I would look vain. Right, so I've got no photos, and then going through this process of having an online business where everyone just wants to connect with a person rather than just another
Mhm.
Instagram account, and
Right.
getting over, like, putting selfies of myself out and not feeling like I was just being vain and whatever. I was like, oh, I put selfie on social media and no one died. What's going on there? So
Right.
I guess it had been this kind of, I just wanted to show people, and I had so many people going, it's been a theme forever, friends, family saying, I've got this great idea, I want to do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh, and Virgo brain switches on. It's like, okay, you just need to take these steps and then you'll be there. Like my superpower is breaking down big things into really
Yep.
bite-sized steps so that you get there. And then some period of time later, I'd be like, so how's that thing going? Oh, no, I couldn't start it. I need to save $50,000. Oh, no, I couldn't start that because I need to lose weight before I can be a speaker on stage. Or I'm like, what? No, that's not the plan. You've got the plan. You just need to do the things. And it was really frustrating to me because you could see that all the things that were stopping people from doing these amazing things was perfectionism.
Mm.
That was a long answer to your question, but hopefully
No,
I answered your question.
well, so let me ask you, is perfectionism a common denominator that you see almost with every client that comes your way?
Yeah, I think so, in one way or another. And it manifests in a fear of being visible, or a fear of failure, a fear of telling their friends what they're doing. And for me, when I started this is my, I think, 5th business. And I was really scared to tell people because I knew that they'd be thinking, oh, here she goes again.
Here she
What
goes
now?
again.
Yeah. But I did the work, and I know that this is basically just me making myself a lifestyle and a living out of my gifts. I'm not pushing someone else's product. I'm not doing it as a job. I'm not doing, the make money fast things. I'm just tapping into my gifts. And that's where the magic is, and everyone's got that.
Oh, I just literally did a Facebook Live on that yesterday.
Oh,
on the gift. We are all genetically gifted.
Yeah.
But it's a great point. And you, so obviously you're a business. Claire Riley is a business within the business. And so what do you do to keep your tools sharp in the toolkit?
I do a lot of professional development, although this year I've taken a bit of a back seat and I'm trying to tap into some of the old things rather than shiny objects, which I'm prone to, which we're probably all prone to. But one of my biggest things, I guess, is having some accountability buddies. So my biz besties and those sort of things. And I call it like having a, I hope I'm allowed to say this on your show, but a bullshitter meter.
Say whatever you want.
So, I've got people in strategic places, personal and professional, and a bit of a mix of both, who have permission to give me a virtual spray bottle when they see me going off the tracks or procrastinating something, or when I've said this is my goal for the next 3 months, and then next minute I'm sort of sneaking away in the virtual corners of the internet and going and doing something else, and I'll have one of my little people pop up and send me a gif of a spray bottle saying, back to what you're supposed to be doing. That's been a real key sort of thing for me. I'm very much I guess, interchangeable with perfectionist is being a people pleaser. And there's a bit of a hangover of that if I've got someone saying, raising an eyebrow at me, I'll definitely be a bit more aware of what's going on rather than just kind of scurrying away and doing my own thing. So I guess having some of those sort of mechanisms are definitely helpful.
Good.
People like
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have my own, I guess, well, they're part accountability. It's I have my Knights of the Round Table. So I have my other 11 people, including myself makes 12, but people that I've surrounded myself that are key people in my life that that all have a unique skill or something unique that they bring to the collective, So I have somebody that calls my bullshit. I have somebody that's, a sweetheart and like full of grace and showers me with what I need in terms of that if I need that type of guidance, or I have the financial strategy guy that's there, and these are just like-minded, heart-centered individuals and colleagues, but we've kind of formed this collective support network.
Love it. Yeah.
And I think I always say that for all the people that I work with, you need to align yourself with some people that have your back, and
Yeah.
and can be a bounce board for you for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And really being selective about who you, I guess don't share some things with. So I always talk about, sharing your goals and that sort of thing, but be really selective because some people can just shit on your parade
Oh
and
yeah.
no one needs that, right? And you find out really quickly who those people are. And often they're people who are super close to you and they are coming from a place of fear and just wanting to protect you. So it's not necessarily malicious or whatever. And they've probably got their own perfectionist stuff kind of going on. But being really selective. And sometimes, it gets to the point where people are well-meaning and they say, so, how's your business? How's that little business thing of yours going these days? How's, it's just so condescending. And I used to take that so personally, like, especially with family. And, I've been in business for so long and people still say, I don't really know what you do, but how's business going? And I just think,
Right.
that's cool. We're not in the same world and I'm not going to waste my breath and your ears on explaining everything. So I just say, good, how's your life going? I don't have to go into the detail. I don't have to disclose all of that with someone who's just going to suck the energy out of me about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about frequency, right? They're just on a different channel.
Sure. Yeah.
You're right. You need to align with those high energy, high frequency people that are going to be there and reciprocate that back. And it's funny you say family members because I do find a lot of times there's always some disconnect with family and people that are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or just there's always something where they have to kind of tune out a family member or tune out somebody because it's just bad static.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just a different world, I think. And I think 5 years ago, even when I came into my business, into this sort of business world, and I was working with heart-centered entrepreneur women, most of whom are quite spiritual on some level, who are very creative. And at the time, I would never have called myself creative. I definitely do these days, but I didn't really align. And I was, definitely a bit of an eye roller, like, oh, what are they on about now? What's this
Nice.
rubbish?
That was actually more of an eyebrow. That was a good eyebrow.
Yeah, well, my eyebrow has a mind of its own. Sorry, it's its own thing. I have no idea. I have no idea how to control it. But I've been really blessed because most of my clients are in that space that just from having such close contact with so many people in so many different spaces within the spiritual and entrepreneurial world and I think being a group of entrepreneurial women especially has a very different energy. And then I kind of get surprised when I'm in other groups of women sometimes that it's not the same conversation or it's not the same things that interest us. And I know that I'm in a little bit of a bubble sometimes, and I try and not be in a bubble because I know it's just a bubble, right? So, but it gives me the confidence and the courage, I suppose, to then spread that and to have, one of the things my dad always talks about. I've got a blog on my website somewhere about it called The Courage of Your Convictions. And his dad taught him that, and his dad taught his dad, and so on and so forth. So it's been a bit of a family thing, I suppose, and having the courage of your convictions. And that can be really scary because, it kind of means that if you're going to believe in something and you're going to say something and then someone challenges you on it, I'm all about, if you can articulate a different opinion, I'm all up for changing my mind if it needs to be changed. But also I'm all about sticking behind something that I believe in and respectfully advocating for that. You know what I mean? So I think that, gives me, to come back to the other bit, that really gives me the confidence to have the courage of my convictions because I know it's not just me, there's a bit of that group bouncing around sort of thing. Like, is it just me? Am I a bit off kilter here? Or is this actually a thing? And having, some like-minded people to bounce things around with like that. Yeah.
I love that concept and your dad's lineage. That's pretty epic. So questions for you. Where have you, can you share with us some place that you've really shared or you've experienced a courage of your own conviction?
So many.
I know, but some good ones, some epic
Yes.
arena moments in Claire
Yes.
Riley's life.
Look, I guess the last year and a half has been pretty epic. As you know, I've separated from my 15-year relationship a year and a half ago, but probably, that was kind of a thing that was evolving and was, just sort of happened, and that's fine. But then at the beginning of this year, so about 10 months ago, the decision whether I was going to stay in the city that I'd been living in for the last 12 years or move to somewhere that felt more aligned but felt scary as hell because I don't know anyone, and taking the kids as a solo mum and all of that sort of thing. So that decision, I guess, was something that I look back on pretty much every single day. Every time I drive and I see the ocean, which is pretty much daily now, I think, oh my gosh, I did this. We live here now because I did this. I made this decision. I made this happen. And I see how brave that was as a someone. I've been in a relationship since I was 20, and before that I was in a 2.5-year relationship, and now all of a sudden I'm a single mum, 35 or whatever I was, 36, moving not interstate but an hour or two away from everyone and everything that I knew, my entire support network, all of that sort of thing was terrifying. And it was months in the making, this decision, and the back and forth of what if it doesn't work, and but what if it does, and do I really want to stay here, and all the one day I've definitely made the decision, I'm absolutely staying here, this is a better decision, the kids will be happier, and then the next day I'll be like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. And then, okay, no, we can do this, we'll move to the Sunshine Coast. And I'm going, what, you can't move to the Sunshine Coast, you've got 2 little kids and you've got no support network. And that whole back and forth and that big epic heaviness of how scary it felt, because could have gone wrong, could have gone crazy, right? So I think that's probably the biggest thing in my recent history that feels even still now like it was a really courageous thing, and thank goodness it paid off. There's definitely been challenges, but on the daily I'm pretty damn proud of myself for making that massive decision.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you should be. The greater the obstacle, the greater the reward, right? Too,
right.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
I think it's a good reminder that a lot of times we have to go through our own decision matrix, or our own kind of back and forth pinball of how of these big life, especially life decisions, right?
Yeah.
Because there's your intellect voice, there's your heart voice, there's you just go back and forth, and there's all these external factors as well, and it just takes time to sit with it. And ultimately, I think we strive to get to that point where the chaos settles a little bit, and then it kind of drops down, and then it just kind of resonates and anchors in your heart, and you're like, you know what, there's a certain peace comes about it with that when you feel like it's a right decision,
right. And I think there's also a certain peace in surrendering to waiting until surrender has been a really big thing last year, especially. This year my word of the year is more about grace, but last year it was much more about surrender, because I have been, and probably am still in certain pockets, a bit of a control freak, and I like to know what's coming next, and I'm very planful. Like planning is kind of my thing, right? So not knowing what's coming around the bend feels a little bit scary, a little bit exciting as well, but often a little bit scary, especially with big changes abreast and that sort of thing. But understanding, and I guess having gone through, and we talked about this on the podcast the other week as well, but understanding that there is a process that goes up and down, and trusting the process. And it's all well and good saying trust the process, but you can't trust the process until you've gone through the process a few times and you realize that you're like, woohoo, this is amazing, I'm up here, and then next minute you're on your ass and you're like, oh shit, how did I get here? But instead of wallowing, you go, oh, that's okay, we're just down here, that's fine, because we'll be up there again in a second, and just knowing that that's what's going to happen, I think allows you to surrender a certain amount of control, and just knowing that whatever is going to happen for a reason. There's so many times, even now, there's a thing coming up this weekend that I was trying to decide whether to do it or not do it, and there were so many pros and cons, and I just kept thinking, just wait, the answer will become obvious, everything's always working out for me, all those sorts of things that you tell yourself. And of course it did, and I got a message from someone cancelling one thing, so the decision was out of my hands anyway. So and it happens every time you decide to not push the decision and to wait for the decision to become obvious. It's more in flow, like you talk about, it's easier, it's almost definitely more of a right choice, whether it's the right one or whatever. It's always I don't know, there's just something that happens when you surrender the decision making, and you don't have to control every tiny little part of your life.
And let's be honest, it's not always easy to surrender. It takes a lot of courage to surrender.
Yeah.
And though there's a lot of strength in that, there's a lot of peace and just trust that you will bounce around and you will get to where you need to go, and the situations present themselves. And I'm also a big proponent of, in every decision, it's really getting clear on what someone truly wants,
Mm.
right? And spending the time to sit with it without the external noise, and just try to tap into what does any decision and how does any decision align with your truth,
Mm.
your inner truth. That to me is a sweet spot, because I feel like if you can keep that compass point connected that way, I think the decisions become easier. I really do.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really do.
And I think further from that, it's, talking about what do you want in untangible ways is almost more important. So what do I want to feel? What do I want
Totally.
my lifestyle to look like? How do I want to
Yeah.
spend my time? Not necessarily. So if you think about relationship, like what do I want in a relationship? You're not talking about tall, dark, handsome, and filthy rich, and all that sort of, like, whatever those sort of things are, don't really matter. I want to feel supported, stable, excited, like those sort of feeling things, because those ones, when you meet someone, for example, they are instant. You almost instantly feel or don't feel those things, and the other stuff just clouds it. And I think that's the same with everything. So, talk about the lifestyle. What do I want to feel? I want to have time with my kids. I was spending 10 hours in the car in Brisbane just on school drop-offs and pickups a week. And now we're 500 meters away from school. So I save myself a tank of fuel and 10 hours of driving a week. 10 hours. I get a whole extra day.
It's a whole day
Tick.
by the beach.
It's a whole day by the beach. Or 2 hours every day.
There you go.
Whatever.
Whatever.
Right. So, but just things like what do I want to feel? I want to feel abundant. Well, woohoo. What does that actually mean? What does that look like? I want to take trips. I want to go away on the weekends. I don't want to work on weekends. I want to knock off at 2 o'clock and not have to jump back on my computer at 8 o'clock at night, those sorts of things. So tapping into what you want to feel and how you want your life and your lifestyle to fill you up. That's the tapping into what you want, more than the listing out, what your dream house looks like.
Yeah. I just as if I would say the same thing. It was beautiful. I
Same page.
wholeheartedly believe in anchoring thing in emotions. Emotions are what seal the deal. Getting, how does this going to make you feel?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because ultimately, I think when we attach emotions to it, like you said, it takes us from the intellect and gets us down into our heart center,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And all the studies and stuff have shown with visualization and manifestation, it's so much more powerful when there's emotional resonance behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is scary, right? Which brings us back to a similar thing to we talked about the other day, because you can't unsee it. And once you get clear on how you want to feel, if there's a
Yeah,
gap in how you currently feel, you can't unsee that. And it has to be a
true.
powerful catalyst to make a change, which is scary as hell, because some of the changes you need to make to bridge the gap from how I feel now to how I want to feel, or at least how I don't want to feel, can be really, really big.
hmm
And scary.
And just like you do and what your specialty is, it's really, really big, one step at a time,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? What
Yeah.
what is the next step? And we need
Yeah.
to find that courage to take that step, whatever
Yeah.
step that is, on
Yeah.
whatever journey that is.
Yeah. And calling in your people, like you said, I think having those key people around you who know you well enough to be able to call you on your bullshit when you're getting in your own way, but also are far enough away that they have your back and they can, I guess, support you in those sorts of ways. So, not letting you talk yourself out of a good decision, or it becomes too hard, or what those sorts of things are. So picking and surrounding yourself with the right people, I think, is such a big key to that as well.
It is. It
Yeah.
really is. I think a lot of entrepreneurs we're designed, we're naturally kind of gifted go-getters, if you will, right? We've kind of make shit happen and we carve our paths. And ultimately, though, we're all designed to be supported by others and to be of support to others, right?
Yeah.
We're community-based creatures,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
right?
One of the things I was mentioning before about asking for and accepting help, that part of my recovering perfectionist journey was realizing how amazing and how special and how valued I felt when someone accepted my help or asked for my help. Like, how good does it feel when someone calls and says, "Hey, James, I really need your help with such and such." You're like, "Oh, they picked me. They could have called anyone, but they asked me." It feels
Hmm.
so special. So I kind of tricked myself, and I talk about this on the podcast all the time. I trick yourself into accepting help by just doing it for other people. I'm just letting James help me because I know it will make him feel really good. If that's what it takes to trick yourself into allowing someone to help you, and then you
Yeah.
realize how there's that beautiful flow of you help me, it's paying it forward, or it's I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Once you've done that a few times, you're like, oh, this is actually really nice. And then
Hmm.
you kind of get into the habit of looking for ways to get more support and looking for ways to ask for help. And, when someone, it can be as simple as someone paying you a compliment, and instead of shrugging it off, saying thank you or agreeing with them, that feels really scary to begin with, right? But when you start finding ways to allow people to support and help you, and something changes, I reckon there's a really big, I don't know, there's some different kind of energy wavelength there when you allow yourself to do this. So if it means tricking yourself into allowing people to help, then that's okay. I'm all about
Hey,
mind tricks.
what, whatever it takes to get the ball rolling, right?
Yeah.
And there's tips, tricks, and tools. I mean, there's a reason why
Yeah.
tricks work, right? So nothing wrong with it. It's not a negative thing.
No.
It's whatever we can do to help people.
Yeah.
And I like what you said too, because you brought back energy, you brought back the community and the support. And I was thinking back to what I was saying about frequency, and it's like I can elevate, and I do elevate on a high vibe frequency. And when I have my people, my support network, it only just helps to strengthen that signal, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
To elevate that. And so I agree. I think one of the best things that any person, never mind business owner, anybody can be, just to make sure they align themselves with
Mm.
good energy people that are going to be there. Like we're
Yeah.
the sum of the five people around us. Well, there's a reason why everyone talks about that. So,
Be picky. Yeah.
you know,
And that even comes down to your all the other sort of external factors. I'm always used to be surprised when, more than 18 months ago, if I picked up my then husband's phone and was on Facebook looking for something, I was always really um, taken aback almost and shocked at how different his feed looked from mine. And mine was filled with love, light, and happiness, for want of a better phrase. And his felt much more doom and gloom. And there was a lot of, like, even the colors were different, the terminology was different, the profile pictures and the cover photos of things were different. And it just felt heavier. It felt really
mm,
different. And
mm,
that's not saying it's good or bad, but for me, it just felt like, oh, I didn't even know this thing existed. And I know there's a danger in only being surrounded by your siloed things, that you don't necessarily then see what else is going on. But to a certain extent, you have to curate your space. It's just as important when you're online as when you're in a group of people, that you're
totally.
surrounded by things that also lift you up, and not by the negative bullshit that is always out there, without being ignorant that it's going on. But you do what you can, and then you continue to high vibe it so that other people can get high vibed, right? Rather than getting all caught up in that. So I think there's a really, it's not just curating your people, it's everything.
Everything. And great point, because I got people that talk negatively about social media and this and that, and I see that. I'm like, well, my feed is fucking pretty good. I have no problem with my feed,
Yeah.
right? Because I choose who I follow. I
Yeah.
choose what I allow in my feed.
Yeah.
Um, and so you're right. It's not just the people. It's space everywhere you go.
Yeah.
It's great
Yeah.
point, Claire. Great point.
Yeah. I even spoke to an amazing woman. She's an interior decorator, and she talks a lot about space medicine, which is a scientific thing that talks about how your physical environment impacts your mood, your vibe, your productivity, your relationships, your emotions, your moods, all of that sort of thing. And I do a lot of the decluttering, and I got really into the minimalism thing a while ago, and now, it's really important to me that I sit on my couch sometimes and I just look around and I think, God, I love where I live. I love my house. And I've never felt that sort of connection to physical space before. But everything that I have, I love. Everything that I don't love anymore, that I don't love looking at, or that doesn't feel good, is gone. I don't need to hold on to that and doing a big whole decluttering. I'll talk about that for days and weeks. But the impact that your physical space makes on all of that sort of thing, makes a big difference as well, I think. So anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, no, I wrote that down, space energy. I'm gonna go check that out.
Amazing. Space medicine. Yeah.
Space medicine or space energy? What is it?
Space medicine, it's
Space
called.
medicine? Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So the medicine and how your space, and she talks about little simple things like bringing the outdoors in, whether that means having bigger windows or having some plants inside. And the whole atmosphere, so what things smell like, what you can see in your direct, in your periphery when you're working on your laptop, or little simple things like that can sort of tweak, and not having clutter everywhere if that stresses you out. And but it's actually all this scientific-y sort of stuff. So I think having the power and the courage to tweak things, whether it's people or your feed, and unliking and unfollowing things on social media, or getting rid of that shit in your house or whatever that's just clogging things up and feels heavy and ugly.
Yeah,
it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I know it does.
Yeah.
It does. Okay, so Claire, we're just gonna circle back here. So we're gonna close the loop on today's conversation, and what I'd like to do, my dear, is to bring it back to perfectionism and bring it back to courage, because I think the two go hand in hand. One can help slay the other, so to speak. So what I would ask is, I know a lot of us in our own certain ways struggle with different components of perfectionism.
Yeah.
What would you say to some people out there that that may be struggling with this? Maybe obviously some don't know that they're struggling with it, perhaps, but let's look at the cross section of people that perhaps know that they have some of those traits. What could you tell them and give them as far as some advice to potentially move forward on that?
Yeah, I guess with things that are particularly related to a project or a change or something that feels too big or feels really challenging, and so there's a gap between the decision or the action taking and that sort of thing, is to really get clear on the purpose and the intention behind making the change and that sort of thing. And sometimes the project is the wrong project. Let's be honest. We've all worked on things that were dead end streets, but in most cases, we needed to work on those dead end streets to get to the understanding, or to get to the real work, to uncover all of that stuff. Like, oh, nope, that wasn't it. Throw some spaghetti at the wall. Nope, that wasn't the right spaghetti. Let's try this spaghetti over here, whatever. But to get really clear on what the purpose and the intention is for you, as well as for the other people involved, whether that's a relationship or your clients or whoever, that sort of thing. I think that really is a missing part for a lot of people. When we do projects, we just go, oh, everyone else is doing a course, I have to create a course. That's not the right purpose. That's not the right reason, right? But when you get clear on the purpose for them, is that it will help them get from A to B or A to C or whatever it is. And I think that being at C is really important because blah, blah, blah. And the purpose for me is that it will help me leverage my time. It will help me get a profile. It will help me get more visible. It will help my income, all of those sorts of things. So when you get really clear on the purpose, it actually makes the decision making a bit easier, but it helps you stick to it and stay anchored and grounded to working through the process of getting it done. So I think that's probably the first thing. The second thing, like I mentioned before, is being realistic and having some sort of milestone and end product, and committing to releasing or putting the bow around it when you get to that point. And if you want to add more later, that's fine, but we aren't doing it before it's launched. We're not doing it before it's even seen the light of day, right? Because it just won't happen. So I think getting clear on that and having someone to work with, whether it's a biz bestie, a friend, a coach, a mentor, someone like that who can help you with the logistics. Because often, it ends up being like, oh no, I just wasn't sure what buttons to press, so I couldn't finish the thing. You're like, find someone who can do the buttons then. There's button presses out there and we're really good at it. So finding someone who can do those sorts of things and, overcome the tech goblins and, whatever it is. So I think that's probably the second one. And then the third one is probably more about giving yourself permission to fail and giving yourself permission to not get it perfect. And a lot of people talk about this, go into Starbucks and ask for a coffee and then ask for a discount. Probably going to say no because it's Starbucks. You're going to a little guy down the corner, maybe. But practice it being told no, and practice it not being in control, and practice at failing and all of those sort of things, and realize, like I keep saying, but did you die? No one died. It's fine. Just go and fail, go and stuff some things up and have a bit of fun with it and stop taking yourself so seriously, or those sorts of things. So
Cool.
Yeah, they're probably my top three, I reckon.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, thank you for taking us down the road of a recovering perfectionist herself, and for joining me as my first ever professional Virgo on the show. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, though, for sharing time and space with us today to shed some insight into your journey, into what you do and how you elevate the human condition from down under. And
down under.
Down under. I can't
keep practicing that. Down under. I don't even say it like that. It's awful, but
yeah, and just talking about courage and how that relates to micro decisions and just taking step forward, whether it's overcoming procrastination, whether it's moving from the safety of a support network that maybe didn't want to be there for you anymore, or you didn't want to be there and moved on, and those major life decisions too. Courage is always a cornerstone of us moving forward in any direction. So yeah. Claire, you rock. I love our conversation. I love talking with you on your show. That was awesome. And I know your clients are very blessed and fortunate enough to have you steering their ship. So awesome stuff.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It is always good chats. I'm sure there'll be many more like this.
I think so. For sure. So, all right. Thank you, Claire. And for all of you, thank you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon. Mad love to the courageous. I love you guys. We'll talk soon. Cheers.